If you're looking for an emerging small cap company that's literally shattering the performance metrics of an old, conventional, but big industry to the point that it signed an LOI with the biggest player in that industry, then you're going to love this interview with HPQ Silicon, who is transforming the process for manufacturing fumed silica. Now, that doesn't sound too sexy, but it's big because fumed silica is used in cosmetics, toothpaste, and powdered foods. The manufacturing of it is toxic, expensive, and environmentally unfriendly because it hasn't changed since 1944. How disruptive is the HPQ silicon process? The reductions in greenhouse gases, energy consumption, and the elimination of hydrogen chloride gas led to HPQ signing a letter of intent with Evonik Corporation, a $10 billion company and the inventor of fumed silica. And today, another big milestone, the press release we're talking about, independent analysis confirms HPQ Fumed Silica Reactor material is commercial quality. Bernard, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this the newest, biggest milestone in the history of HPQ Silicon?
In the history of HPQ Silicon, a couple of areas, it is the biggest milestone. It is a milestone that we were, we knew we would reach, but we were impatient to reach. We never had any doubt we would get there, but now that we're there, it feels much better. And it's like until I saw the images and I got the confirmation, then I can say, okay, now we've made the stuff. So all the excitement, the hype, the whatever you want to call it, that was generated a year ago when we signed the LOI, okay, are now more than ever back on track, okay? It's R&D, okay? Getting the machine to work sometimes gets longer, but the importance is getting it to work and doing the material, okay? And it's important to look at the fundamental, all right? We're taking a material when we start with quartz. I should have taken a piece of quartz that was just behind me to show it, okay? Quartz, and we turn into fumed silica in one step, all right? Anybody else that wants to do it needs to first take that piece of quartz with wood chips, with carbon, put it in a arc furnace, make silicon metal, dissolve that in acid, make silicon tetrachloride, then burn that with hydrogen and other material. Okay, so if I can put an image very simply, okay, and this is just an image, okay, it's like as if I could figure out a way to have a rock and it says, okay, I'll make gasoline directly out of this, not refinery or everything else, something you can put directly in your car. Okay, that's about as big as this is.
Wow.
Now, we've been saying this for such a long time that I can understand a lot of people says, yeah, they've been saying it, but they haven't done it. Well, it's R&D, but for us, for me anyway, personally, until I saw those, those TEM, transmission electron microscopy images, which clearly show that it's the same thing that we did at lab scale, that Evonik does, then I knew we had it. Then I know we're on the right track, we're on the right path. Because I remember the pathways when we started to talk about this in 2022, I believe. Don't get me 2023 or no 2023. Sorry, 2023. And it was just that first image. Actually, the first image we showed wasn't even as good as this. And that's what started my beginning of my conversation with Evonik, and followed by the number two and number three guys of the industry. Okay, now Evonik went one step further. They truly believe that we can do it. They signed an LOI, which allows them to name them because they really want to be the first to get the material. Okay, but then we had to do our part, pyrogenesis and us, and get the machine to work. Now it was working. It's working much better than we anticipated. And before we could, truly sing and dance and be happy, we at least needed for ourselves to be able to say, validated, this is an image. Now, footnote to this, okay? You cannot get those pieces of equipment to do those type of tests of the transmission electronic microscopy, okay, anywhere. So in Montreal, it's limited to the 4 universities, okay? So, if people ask question, it's one of the four, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we worked before with McGill, so the probabilities are very high it's McGill. Actually, no, the probability it is McGill. So, it's like
I like the secrecy. I'm going to get into a couple more details. One
Mhm.
more big picture question.
Okay.
How happy are you? And I know you're still subdued, it's because it's your way, but how happy are you right now? But how happy should HPQ Silicon shareholders be with this development and independent analysis confirming it's fumed silica and it's commercial
Um,
quality?
they should be ecstatic. It's like it's a whole joke. We're back, baby, in a certain sense that we now have done it. Okay, people are going to say we haven't commercialized it, right? Correct. But we've done something that not too many people have done. Okay, we've demonstrated at lab scale that we could do this material to the specification of one of the largest players in the industry, and lo and behold, we've replicated this at a scale 20 times bigger. Okay, so anybody saying this is nothing, they don't know what they're talking about. But that's okay. They're allowed to say this. But for
Well, that's
me,
five Fudsters, right? That's five
yeah,
Fudsters.
but
I don't think
but
there's anybody.
five fraudsters have 20 accounts that repeat 100 times the same thing. It's irrelevant. It's just that the key point I want people to understand is that the FSR technology has delivered something massive. All right. Okay, we're late. It's R&D, but we're late. You want to blame me for this? Fine. But I've always said we always deliver. We just sometimes our timing always sucks. So this time at least we didn't put too much timing into this.
Yeah, like we said, it's not a pizza. And by the way, we'll be creating the HPQ Silicon Fudster cemetery soon enough, digitally, with nice headstones of each one of the Fudsters' names, so the whole world remember them forever, and they'll never be forgotten. But let's forget about them. All
No,
right.
it's irrelevant. The key point is the FSR reactor, which can take quartz. Wait, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have a piece of quartz right here. Okay. This is quartz. Okay. Well,
Hold that up
you
in
see
front of
it?
your shirt. That way we won't lose it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it's gonna be better. Okay, this is a piece of quartz. Okay, this is our feedstock. Okay, our competitor feedstock is silicone tetrachloride. Go look at it. Look at the chemical formulation for it. I might not be a chemist, but I know the chemical formulation is complicated. Okay, this is our feedstock. That's a
And it's
big
abundant
difference.
and it's everywhere.
Mhm.
Next steps. We got to talk about this now, right? I'm going to ask you, we're going to bring up the image and talk a little bit about
Mhm.
yield and all that, but I got to get straight to the meat because all the shareholders are thinking about it. Evonik, when do you start shipping samples to them? And then part two, what do you expect their timeline to be for their analysis?
Oh, okay. When we start shipping them, I'm having a conference call with them tomorrow to see if they're interested in getting the material from this test, because maybe not be the most perfect test. And if they are interested, we will ship it to them. Uh, but until that's done, until that I have a confirmation of this, it's just like discussion. But we have continuous ongoing. We'll have continuous more tests. We'll do more material, and then it'll be starting. How long does it take? Because there's a series of tests they're going to do. Okay. Um, it could be like a few weeks, or they might go faster and do them faster. I think they're going to do them much faster this time. Because totally, to be honest, and I think I've told that story many, many times. When I had my first conversation with the beginning conversation with the team there at Ivonics, they were more curious to basically prove that I was wrong. And we hadn't made fume silica, that then they were right, we made fume silica. So maybe their test process is going to be longer. Maybe the test process for the first one is going to be okay, it's good, but work on these details, those issues. The key point is this: by the image we publish, we know we made fume silica. We know that there's going to be commercial material for this. We think where it is in the grade, They'll tell us where they think it is the grade, then we'll have the comparison, and then we'll see how to improve the material.
Uh,
So,
Other parties. You also have a quote. I want to read the quote, and then we're going to go to this image, and I'm going to ask a couple of questions.
mhm,
Quote, with these technical milestones achieved, we're now ready to advance to the next stage, distributing samples
mhm,
to qualified third parties under NDA and
mhm,
LOI for
mhm.
independent evaluation qualification. What's the word with the other big fume silica players? Have you had contact? Any discussion? Did they see this press release or maybe the last press release? And where are we at? Or how much can you tell us, anyways?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that since we only published this press release today and the previous press release last Thursday, okay, um, because I had conversation with the other parties, and they said once you have material, contact us back. So we restarted the contact. I'm 100% confident that they'll come back to me. I'll just give you a sweet, funny anecdote. One of the companies, well, a lot of companies we do are basically multinational corporations with operations in different areas. So I deal more probably with the North American, and I have other people that deal more with the European one. And one of my contact did send today a copy of this press release to to his contact in the European division. He came back and says, "Okay, I've put CC to the head person of business development. They'll contact you." So whatever that means.
I
So,
would think I would think this is reverberating fast around the fume silica world. I would think it's going to start reverberating pretty fast.
it's going to revert very, very fast as we get more advanced. You have to realize that the um, the world market structure for manufacturing fumed silica, okay, is sort of changing because of the tariff wars. Right?
Right.
Even in the best case scenario, the U.S. is saying they want to have a 10% minimum tariff. Okay. So if you have a 10% minimum tariff on a product where you make a 20%, EBITDA margin or gross margin, okay, that's half your profit. You can't eat that. All right. And then if at the same time you restructured your companies pre-tariff, thinking, okay, I can shut down some of the old, less efficient plant in, let's say, the North American area and ship the material from Europe, then that plan doesn't work anymore. So you need something that's going to be flexible, that doesn't require the $1 billion of capital. Okay, you just to remember, just to build a a fume silica plant, just the end section of the entire process, fume silica plant, it's still $150 million. We're not going to be close to that with regard to cost. Can't say more because I'm not allowed because it's, past 2 years of statement, but we have a good idea of the cost. So do they. They wouldn't have signed an LOI if they hadn't gone through the concept of analyzing the cost or cost structure, what our cost structure is going to be once we start making the material. Because if the cost structure didn't make any sense, aka we're cheaper than they're doing it, why bother?
Yeah,
So
you're not
those
just
are
cheaper,
pointed.
you're shattering it on CapEx, on OpEx. You're shattering, right?
Well, to be truthful, okay, we believe we will shatter, and once we have shattered, we will have shatter it. But you understand the position I'm sort of in
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
regulatory wise, but
yeah.
the numbers haven't changed. Just I can't really say them, but I can present them to to strategic investors.
Yeah, and I'm going
And
off the lab results last year when you guys put out those numbers. So, um, okay, let's move on to the image.
yeah,
Uh, the
that's the image.
magic
That's the
images.
image I wanted to see, and I wanted to have for
Tell us what we're looking
such
at.
a long time. Okay. Well, basically, the big takeaway from the independent test done in McGill, for those that didn't, we forgot that, right? We didn't think it was that important. So if it is. So the white powder we recover is fumed silica. Second part is, because this was test number 4. So in a certain way, test number 4 was just, okay, we've done 3 tests. We've done a lot of process improvement. We think it's going to work. Oh, great, it worked. But there was some additional step in the process that we didn't do because we didn't think we would produce that much material. So it's just that. So we ended up having impurities into it. But the impurities observe exactly what we anticipated to find. Um, and basically they can be eliminated. Okay, it's not at a commercial stage, but at a commercial stage, we won't make those impurities. We'll have resolved that issue. So we already know how to resolve this. But what's really fascinating for us really, really fascinating for us, is that the production yield was much greater than anticipated at this stage. Um, and what that means is we converted more of that quartz material, okay, into fumed silica in the time allocated by the test than we anticipated to do at test number 4. Okay.
How much more, Bernard? Was it incrementally more, which is great, or was it like
No,
really big delta?
it wasn't incrementally more. It was by a serious magnitude. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
But it's by a serious magnitude. Like people might, like I've mentioned that we've picked up 4 kilograms of material, but that's just a number with no data point of, how much material we put in all those issues, because there's no need for us to divulge this information at this time. This is sort of like internal to us. The key takeaway is that, when we ended up doing what's known as a mass imbalance, the numbers really surprised us and really excited us because more tweaking, as we'll get closer, we'll get up to our theoretical model that we're looking at doing. And once we get there, then we have a machine that we know is going to operate as efficiently as we thought it would. We'll get there, but we're just surprised that at test number 4 we got there. And for me, the most important part, okay, is that a side-by-side comparison of the TM images, okay, shows a high degrees of similarity between the microstructure and morphology. Remember, those are nanoparticles of silica. Okay? That's why it's called fumed silica. And it becomes fumed silica because it has a long tail. That's the long tail that makes into it. That's not the usual chemical look at SiO2. So what was truly important is we're able to show we should this is what we made. The image 1A is the one we made at lab scale at lab scale. The material that met the criteria for Evonik. Okay. And when you look at the images B1 and B2, which are two material, and remember, the material A was picked up in the lab scale reactor. Okay, so it's never really commercial if you picked up in a reactor. Image B1 and B2 are materials that were recovered in the baghouse. So those are finished, closer to finished product industrial in a pilot plant designed to replicate at a 20 scale bigger what we did at pilot scale. But there's really two things. There's one thing, which is the replicating of the system at a scale 20 bitter, which is the FSR reactor. Okay. And there's something that's completely new, which is recuperating the material in the baghouse. Okay. So that's not something that we did at lab scale. That's something completely new, and it worked very, very well. Now, one of the reasons it works very, very well is because there is a lot of history, a lot of data into how those things must operate. So it's not a big mystery. This is why we know that scaling up, it's not going to be very complicated for us to scale up by another 20 times because those are all standard known industrial process. Our baghouse is a standard baghouse, the part number of micron you need for the size of those materials, but nothing extraordinary. But the fact that we made it in the reactor and picked it up in the baghouse, and it looks exactly like what we did at lab scale, that is a massive check mark. Massive check mark. And then you see it below for the images of Evonik's type material. Now, of course, those images look clearer, okay, because they're part of a scientific paper. So, the scientific paper, they could take their time to get the right pictures. We were just like, let's get an image. Let's look at it. Does it look? Yes, we're happy. Yay, we're all excited. But the fact is, it shows the same thing. That is massive. That is what the
By
guys
the
in the
way,
industry could look at.
yeah, it just looks pretty. I got to tell you, it looks. I may be biased, but it just looks pretty.
Hmm.
I want to turn that into an NFT. By the way, I think there are a lot of HPQ shareholders that might love to have this as an NFT. But I would imagine you're probably going to add on to this. You got A, B, you got A, B1, B2, C1 to C3, more. You've got the fifth. I'm sure you got fifth and sixth testing going on. So is it fair to say we may see even more images than this?
We'll probably end up
D1 to
having,
D3, E1 to E3, like that.
yeah, but at one point, I wanted something visual to be able to explain to shareholders why, when I say, we're on the right path and we made the stuff, to have an image like this. Do we need to replicate it as the other one? It really depends. Maybe probably once we've made a material that's graded, let's say our A150, our A200, our A300, or A is not our A is basically from the Evonik aerosol type of document. We'll call it the 150, 200. Then probably we'll take some very nice pictures with the same type of equipment for marketing purposes, and then when we do a data sheet for potential clients.
All right. Last question I had for you is something you kind of touched on in the last interview, and a couple of investors were asking about it, talking about it, where you said, all right, we're 2 years away from full scale production, full commercial, production. But you're not waiting, your shareholders, I'm assuming, I want you to clarify this for everybody. You're not waiting 2 more years for some kind of commerciality out of this. Presumably, what's going to happen is you're going to start the negotiations with Evonik very shortly if they haven't started already, correct?
Correct. Well, if you remember,
And
I've
other parts.
said, yeah, no, if you remember correctly, I say it. Okay, Avonics always believed that we would do it. Okay. Now, was that something said for me just to keep me, excited to talk with them? It's irrelevant. And I always said I wanted us to know that we've made the material. Okay. And then there's an entire world for us to conquer with this technology. Okay. And what we've discovered is that even just in our backyard, which is the Canadian market, okay, it's a 20,000 ton per year market. And there are no Canadian producer of fumed silica. So they either come from the US, China, or Europe. Simple as that. So there are no producers, and there are people that use, 1,000 ton of that material, multiple 500 tons of those issues. So there is a strong, and we have made the internal studies. Okay, we're not allowed to publish them or share them, but we've made the internal studies of taking just 10,000 of that Canadian market, which we easily take. First of all, as a Canadian producer, we can simply ask the government to block the competitors because they can't match us, and that's we're going to be it. So we don't have to do a fighting for the price. We can also create a national, by having a national producer, basically we create an autonomous region of those issues. And then the same thing can apply in the US. We are in discussion or preliminary discussion with different group interested in different geographical areas of where the work should take place. So the multiple business model associated with this are massive. It is not because the AMF has made me pulled out saying that these numbers, I can't publish those numbers, that those numbers don't exist. Okay. Remember, Evonik wouldn't have signed this if they hadn't reviewed their numbers with their own thing. And guess what? They've probably built more of these type of plants than I have here. And they sort of agree with our numbers. Well, they do agree with our numbers. So uh I always said so I always said we
The
were like
question the question I started with was, so how long do you think the actual negotiations really begin now? Like
oh I think
we've got to be
I
really
think
close.
I
Evonik's
think
just got to do their independent
yeah.
testing.
Well, yeah, but they're going to do their own independent test, but they have a good clue what it is. They're going to be looking at those pictures. They have a general idea what it is. It's not, they understand, they've seen the material before, they understand the potential, they understand the special percentage, and they might be new type of application of our material that we're doing that we don't even know that can have some application that can come into it, that were probably too expensive to do with the other process, but we're going to come in cheap enough. So the, we were always too good to be true, but now we've done it, we've demonstrated it works. Now it's going to be too good to ignore.
Bernard,
That's what these results.
congratulations.
That's what these results mean. Okay, it's not. It might not reflect tomorrow on the share price. It might not reflect, but it's a demonstration that we've stayed focused on this. And it wasn't because I spoke more about batteries during a little bit of time that we were not working on doing the fumed silica, but the fumed silica had to do his own stuff at his own time, which is actually funny. Today I got criticized because I wasn't talking about batteries.
Well, the
I
Funster's
mean,
trying to play that game with you too,
oh,
right?
that's
It's
not
like,
even a
why is
fuster.
Bernard talking
No,
about batteries? Something must be going wrong with fumed silica. He's trying to distract us here. So you've come out on top, and I wouldn't. I mean, I laugh at these guys. I know you get a little worked up sometimes. I laugh
No,
at
it's
these
just,
losers. I got to
it's not a
tell you,
question of work up.
it's just
It's the lack of transparency of these guys. Okay, it's like I'm sorry, but if you repeat 20 times the same question, it's like it's like. And
I
actually, they
just
do
want
it.
them to know I laugh at them. I've always laughed at them, and
Yeah,
I
yeah, no,
enjoy
I'm
them
fine. I'm
scrambling
fine.
for their lives trying to paint the pictures, but they're losers at the end of the day. You know, to quote Donald Trump, they're just
Anyway,
a bunch of losers. And you
yeah.
guys doing great stuff. Pyrogenesis, you guys together as a team, you and Peter. I'm hoping
Mhm,
that at some point when your next couple of press releases come out, I don't know what they're going to be, but I'm assuming they're going to keep getting better and better. Unless it's a big surprise that we'll be able to do a a three-way interview together and really share in the milestone, the celebration together. But until then, my friend, congratulations to you, the whole team, everybody. I know it. You make it look easy. Yeah, right. And a lot of us, I think sometimes that's why there even was some frustration from existing shareholders. It's
mhm.
because you guys make it sound easy. So it's like, hey, hurry up. Let's just get that pizza out of the oven and let's confirm we got the pepperoni and cheese on it. So
Yeah,
you're
but
almost a victim of your own success there sometimes.
remember the old saying about sausages. You probably don't want to know how they're made. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. And in this case, you're not going to let us know how it's made, but that's okay. You guys got it made. That's the most important part.
mhm.
Bernard, I'm still in Los Angeles. I'm here to Friday. So um, today's Wednesday. Who knows? If I get a phone call tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be shocked. Let's put it that way. But until then, my friend, have a great day. Congratulations from us. And I think I speak on behalf of 99.7% of the people that are following this story and can't wait for the next milestone.
Thank you.
To everyone at home, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to your comments and feedback on the HPQ Silicon Verified Forum on Agoracom. And until then, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Hey, small cap fam! I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.